Hello and welcome to our conversation about taking steps to improve equity, diversity, and inclusion in our places of work and communities. It is brought to you by the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Community and Social Development Department of the town of Stony Plain. Surely, you've heard the phrase, "I'm in a rut," which means that the person wants to change something but can't. Attitude, processes, or other factors make it hard to change course. And addressing those things is a lot of what change management is all about. An important part is also having an idea of what is outside of the rut and what can be different. In this session, we have a conversation about people, places, and processes to provide a few inspirations and ideas for getting out of a staffing rut. The conversation takes place between myself, Mike, Renata, and Ada of BadaB Consulting. At the end, we'll also take a moment to tell you about our recognition badges and help you take steps and demonstrate your commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Now, let's get talking. For our conversation today, I want us to share some ideas for companies that are looking to make changes, whether it is a quick, "Oh yeah, that's a tweak that could work," or a snow globe shaking aha that brings in bigger changes. Of course, we don't know what each company wants to do, so we can't say what is a tweak or a shake at the moment, but I'm sure that we can come up with some good ideas for all to consider.
Thanks, Mike. I like where this is heading, but can we focus it in a bit?
Sure, good point. How about we provide ideas along the lines of the 3 Ps, of people, of places, and of process?
Works for me. How about we start with people? When I think about the people involved in recruitment, I notice that many small and medium companies run the recruitment process through just one person. My first idea is to expand the number of people, especially at the interview and selection parts of the process. This adds variety and perspective that helps guard against the similar to me bias that often shows up in staffing decisions. Getting more people involved can also help the hiring decision be better accepted by the team.
That makes sense. And one further point on people is to consider including the team members that will be working with or reporting to the new hire. Since many interview processes are now shifted to online, they can be recorded and shared with the team. Now, the point here is less about the candidate being hired, but more about the current team being involved. People like to have input on decisions that affect them and their work. And this is a clear way to increase those feelings of inclusion.
Awesome. Both good ideas. Renata, do you want to keep going with an idea about place?
Sure, Mike. There's so many things to consider about place. I think I'll make a general statement here that companies should really consider the physical setting first to ensure that it's accessible to all candidates. This can be the broader building, such as assuring that there are ramps or accessible doors for people with mobility challenges, or at the very least, known alternatives or other accessibility accommodations. And even making things easier for everyone by using spaces on the first floor of the building so that nobody has wayfinding problems. This can also be very specific to the interview space, such as ensuring that doorways are wide enough for a wheelchair and the meeting table is accessible.
Right. And even deciding to hold the interviews outside of the boss's office can help reduce the power imbalance that is keenly felt by some culture groups.
One more idea that is more subtle is to look at the social and visual cues that happen in physical places. Some studies have looked at priming for both decision makers and candidates and find that people respond to subtle cues like magazine covers on the waiting room tables. So a company might include positive diversity visual identifiers in a meeting room to help communicate and reinforce balanced hiring practices.
All good ideas. Our last P is process. For this one, I want to simply put 2 technology ideas on the table. First, consider using online testing games as part of the selection process for some key skills and abilities. One example is available through LENSA, which helps assess a candidate's problem-solving skills and other hard and soft skills. This allows for a more objective demonstration and assessment than, say, interview questions. Second, consider using virtual reality rooms for initial interviews. While this helps address some place issues, I mention it here because these rooms also allow for avatars, which strip away personal characteristics that may lead to discrimination.
Mike, I have one more technology process I'd like to suggest, and that is to really take a hard look at the application process, particularly from an accessibility lens. Some people with a disability have a very hard time navigating the standard online application portal. Having a secondary route for such candidates can be a major win for both the company and, of course, the candidates.
Perfect. Renata, why don't you close our conversation with a few action items?
Absolutely. 2 simple things you can do right now. Action 1, pick one of the people, place, or process ideas that we shared here today and consider if there are any tweaks or shakes that might be helpful to your staffing process. In action 2, talk to some of your new hires. Ask them if they encountered any challenges in the staffing process and what you might do differently to make it a more inclusive and welcoming process.
That was a pretty good conversation. As we wrap up the session, I'd like to take just a minute to let you know that we offer a badge recognition program that is focused on supporting organizations in the early stages of action on equity, diversity, and inclusion. There are 6 badges available: leadership and capacity, accessibility, staffing, compensation, performance excellence, and learning. For each, we have a list of research-based practical indicators, and you tell us how your organization is fulfilling several of them. Then, we have a confirmation meeting and award the badge. There's lots of flexibility built in, and the point is to inform and recognize your first steps on the journey of meaningful equity, diversity, and inclusion. Contact information for Ada, Renata, and myself are on screen. Please reach out to any of us or the corporate office to talk more about equity, diversity, and inclusion and how we can help you. And thanks to our partners, the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce and Community and Social Development Department of the town of Stony Plain, who are advocates of equity, diversity, and inclusion.